let's close out the month of February with a Q&A. I've got a couple of questions that are all very different. And actually, as I was reading through, I was like, ooh, these are some good ones, some things that I hadn't quite thought of, and I didn't know that you wanted to know the answer to. So I'm excited to talk about them. If you have a question that you would like me to answer on a podcast episode, please check out the link in the show notes. That will take you straight to a form you can fill out. It can be completely anonymous. I would love to hear your question. And maybe you don't have a question, but you're just kind of wondering what others are. You can scroll back, look for where it says Q&A at the title of the episode, and you'll be able to find out those other question and answers if you enjoy this type of format. So let's get into it. I am so glad that you are here listening to Little by Little Homeschool podcast. I am your host and the founder of Little by Little Homeschool. My name is Leigh Nguyen, and I am so glad that you are here. If you listened to Monday's episode, you heard me say I've got an announcement coming on Monday. You don't want to miss that one. It's going to be fun and exciting for me, and just kind of, I've been working on it secretly behind the scenes, so I'm excited to share that with you. But anyway, I'm glad that you are here for today's episode, this Q&A. I am a mom at the end of her journey who has been so blessed by homeschool. And I know that deep down, I always was meant to be a homeschool mom. It just took me a couple of years of my kids being in the public school system to realize that that really was what God had for our family. And I have benefited so much from it. Was it always easy? No. It was hard at times, very, very hard at times. And I'm just glad that we persevered. I am so glad for God's faithfulness to call us and to give us endurance through this season. And that's why I am here, to encourage you to continue with it, because it is 100% worth it. Now let's get into these questions. The first mom's question goes like this. She says, my son has just turned 4 years old, and we have been working with him at home. My husband and I decided to homeschool our son. We made this decision the day he was born, but have not told our son's doctor. His doctor keeps asking when he's going to start public school and keeps asking our son if he is excited and happy that he will be going to school soon. My husband and I are not sure how to tell our son's doctor that we are going to homeschool him and are worried or concerned about what he might say or think about this. Our son is the youngest of his siblings, as his siblings live outside of the home now, which means not very much socializing with kids his age until he is older and can attend Teen Wednesday at our church and go to co-ops. But for now, he does have lots of older people to talk with, and my husband and I do play with his toys with him and read him books and watch movies with him. Also, just not much social going on with kids his age right now. Please help if you can, and thank you for your guidance. I appreciate it. Well, this question sounds like a two-parter, so let's start with the very first one. And if your son's doctor has a negative opinion about the way you're going to educate him, I'm just going to say this flat out, you might need to find a new doctor. The doctor is there as a consultant that you have hired. You have gone to them and you pay them for this service. I honestly think that insurance has taken that out of the process. Think about when you go somewhere and you pay for a service for something. For example, or you don't even go somewhere. For example, this is the one that we've all done. We've had to have a plumber come over. Maybe you got a toilet that's backed up, or you've got something going on. You have a plumbing issue. Your husband took a look at it and he's like, you know what? This is beyond me. You hire a plumber. The plumber comes over, and you're using them for that service that appeals to the plumbing in your house. Maybe this doesn't quite line up. So I'm thinking about maybe this isn't quite the best example, but I mean, the doctor's there with your son's plumbing. I don't know if that quite fits, but the doctor is there as a guide for your son's physical health. You have decided to use their service. And if you don't see eye to eye, if there's pushback from the doctor about the way you're going to educate them, go find another doctor. There are other doctors. You're probably not living out in the middle of the jungle somewhere where there's maybe only one doctor. And honestly, my kids are older, but I have gotten some kind of looks, and I have felt that too. So I do want to show a little bit of compassion here. I do understand when we did switch to homeschooling and we're, maybe doing checkups or physicals for camp and that kind of stuff, and they would ask, and I would just flat out tell them. And I kind of had to okay, this is what we're doing. I'm not going to let basically a stranger. This stranger would maybe see my kids once a year. And I was like, you don't get to speak into my life and how we are doing the other 364 days of the year. So I would say the next time you do go to the doctor and he brings it up, you can just say, you know what? We've actually decided to homeschool. And you say it in a way of full confidence that this is what you're going to do. And he will probably be like, oh, okay, because it's just as different. It's not what probably 99% of the other patients, the other children that this doctor sees. It's not what they're doing. I think it's important that you say something, because the doctor is going to continue saying to your son, oh, you probably are really excited to ride on the bus. Oh, you can't wait to be able to go to school and make new friends. And so he's going to continue saying things, and your child is the one who's going to have some confusion in their mind. And related to this, as far as doctors, but not the same topic, and you could read between lines if you want. There was an appointment at one point, and the doctor really pressured me about something, and I said no, and we had a little bit of a going back and forth, and I stuck to my conviction. And when we walked out, my son was, I don't know how old he was, probably somewhere maybe 10, 11, 12, something. And he goes, well, that got awkward. And because he just kind of sat there, he didn't say anything. Kids, even the doctor asked a question, like kids would like turn and look at me. I'm like, okay, they probably think you're mute, you can't talk, or like I'm overbearing. But anyway, he said, well, that got awkward. And I was like, I don't really care. I was like, maybe for him. I was like, good riddance. Never saw that doctor again. And so we have our convictions. You have your conviction to homeschool, and just flat out say, we have decided to homeschool. Okay? Just do that. And if there's any pushback or something, he has concerns, you can say, I'm not concerned. This is what we are doing. This is my son. This is what we're going to do. And if you feel like you are going to have a hard time doing that yourself, have your husband come to that appointment that you say something. Okay? And that will hopefully, he will have your back, and maybe he is the one that actually says it. Now, let's go into the fact that maybe not a ton of socialization for your 4-year-old. He'll be fine. I can tell you that right now. He will be fine. You aren't hiding him away and secluding him in a way that he's not going to see anybody else. You are going to be intentional about things. The fact that you're playing with him and you're reading to him, and you guys have maybe movie nights and you're going on maybe adventures or just having quiet days at home, he will be okay. The most important bond is with his parents. That is the most important bond. And so when you can maybe, if you can maybe tie in, so his older siblings, I'm sure he'll maybe have interaction with them. We have to get out of the mindset that the best socialization for kids is kids of the same age. I think it's actually a broad range of kids. It's good for him to have interactions with kids of all ages throughout his entire life and his entire upbringing. If there are some years that it's just a little bit more quiet, that's okay. I assure you that he will be okay. And if it becomes a concern for you, that maybe he's a little bit more reclusive and a little more secluded or a little more too much introverted, then you do the things that you need to do to get him out there. Second question is, how did you decide how many kids to have and when to have them? We have one 18-month-old and had hoped to have a big-ish family, but both my son and I have health issues that leave me feeling exhausted. My days are full just doing the basics of homemaking, and it also makes me a bit sad to think of not being able to devote my attention to my son. Feeling like a bit of a slacker seeing all my friends having multiple kids close together, and I wish I felt ready for another one. Okay, story time, since you asked for my opinion about myself and how we decided with 3 kids. To be honest, I did not plan on having kids, and I've talked about this already. It just wasn't something that was on my radar. Kids were fine. I just had some career goals and aspirations and didn't really think about it until I spent a Christmas Eve with my brand new nephew. He was just a couple weeks old, and my heart just completely changed. I got baby fever and went home, and I said to my husband, all right, I want children. And less than a year later, my daughter was born. She was a very tough baby. I also had an accident where I, not a car accident, but just I fell and broke my foot when she was about 6 weeks old and was on crutches for a couple of months. Could not walk on it at all, no pressure. And I mean, the stories you can tell, at the time it was a very dark and hard time. It was just 2 of us at home. I didn't have any friends where we were living. And anyway, she was just difficult going through that. And I was just like, I don't think I want any more kids. I can't do this again. I had really tough time postpartum. I had no friends that had any children. And so it was a very big adjustment. We got to probably about 16 months or so. And I was like, okay, I found my stride. I figured out a bit of motherhood and I love this. And I'm ready for another one. So we had a second and then later on had a third. There's 5 years between the oldest and the last. And I'm going to be honest and tell you that when we had the third afterwards, I was just like, I don't know that I can do this. I felt overwhelmed, and we made decisions in an overwhelming season that maybe we wouldn't have made when things settled out. A few years later, I did wish that it was possible for us to have more kids, but I'm so thankful for the children that we have. And so we can spend time wishing for what we don't have, or we can stop and we can look at what we do have, and we can pour our hearts into what we do have. So let's now go into her question. So 18-month-old had always thought, a biggish family, but it sounds like, it doesn't sound like it. She actually said her son and she has some health issues. And so it's hard for her to be able to maybe feel like you are giving him all, and how would you divide your time with more children? It is okay to have one child. It is okay that you're pouring your heart into it. I have a handful of friends that have one child. That was their choice. And some of them, it was also the same situation with health. Like, the mom has issues, and it just wasn't a good thing for her to have more children. And they have poured their heart into this one child, and it's been amazing to watch. There is nothing wrong with having just, even in air quotes, it's every child is a blessing, and every child requires a lot of our energy. And so if this is how God has your family rounded out, that's okay. Maybe, I pray that your health issues, that you're able to resolve those. The health issues of your son, you're able to resolve those as well, because I just would love for you to be able to have full life and full health and vitality, and not be feeling like you are. And that just kind of hurts my heart a little bit to know that, you're feeling exhausted, and it's just a lot just to do the basic things. And so you are not a slacker if you are seeing your friends have multiple kids. I can look at families. I can look at other women who have double the amount of kids I have. They have 6 kids. They could have 10 kids. They could have 12 kids. And I know their homes are big and full of life and all of these kids. And it is such a blessing for them. And I can spend my time looking and wishing that we had more, or I can spend my time just focused on what God has blessed us with, and really pouring into those relationships and giving our kids that foundation that they really will benefit from the rest of their life. So you lean into the season that you are right now, and God might call you to have more children, or God might say, this is okay. And you might have that peace. Have conversations with your husband. Make sure this is an open line of conversations. Let him know how you are feeling, how you are struggling, so that it isn't anything that you are holding inside of yourself, that the two of you grow closer through this. And overall, I just pray for a restoration of full and beautiful health for you. Third question is, she says, I love your perspective as someone who's already homeschooled through middle and high school. I have an 11-year-old strong-willed son who does well academically at home, but schooling has also been the place where a lot of resistance and power struggles show up over time. This is our 6th year homeschooling. As we head into the middle school years, I'm trying to discern the difference between a hard season you push through versus a situation where the structure itself needs to change to protect both the parent-child relationship and long-term sustainability. Looking back, did you find it important during middle school to shift some academic authority off yourself or add some outside structure, especially if you had a child who didn't respond well to parent-led instruction? And how did you do that without moving into full-time school? Strong-willed child. Okay, spoiler alert. Next month, I'm going to have some episodes specifically towards certain personalities, or certain specific ways that personalities kind of are exhibited. And one of those is a strong-willed child. I had a strong-willed child. And if you've been listening here for any bit of time, you know that's my second born. And he is okay with me sharing. I did do an episode, and I'm not saying that your 11-year-old strong-willed son is this, but I did do, in air quotes, an episode about, if you have the bad kid, because my strong-willed son was seen as being maybe bad because he wasn't just going along with everything. And in my experience, there is sometimes one child that requires a lot more intention and a lot more energy. That energy could be mentally, emotionally, physically. And that was my second born. He is 21 now, and I have to tell you this story, not to toot my own horn, because honestly, there were times that I was like, I don't know if I can do this anymore. Because also the thing is, I'm headstrong and I'm a bit strong-willed. As a young child, I was not. But as I got to like middle school and high school and then definitely college, I became more and more strong-willed. And so the two of us together, there would be some fireworks at times. And so that also kind of, so maybe evaluate your type of personality and maybe if you're strong-willed, because some of the things that my son would do, my husband wouldn't even be flustered by, but it would get me all worked up. So that might be something to kind of look into, and obviously pray. Lots and lots of prayer. I remember lots of prayer, like, Lord, please give me wisdom on how to raise him. Obviously, I was praying that the same thing for the other two kids, but it just seemed like in some seasons, it was just, I was on my knees a lot. I was in tears a lot because I know your heart just really wants to help prepare him and to help to mold and shape his character into one that glorifies God and emulates Jesus. And so this story is, if you listen to the past episode just before this, I did talk about how I joined a gym and there's a woman that works there in the morning. And so I was going at a different time, adjusted my time. My youngest and I have been sharing a car with their dad. There's just been a couple of different things that have gone on with different cars. And so the best time for us to go is first thing in the morning. And so my older son goes at that time as well. He goes on his own, and then me and the youngest would go as well. We didn't stay as long because the youngest would get back in time for breakfast and Bible study with dad. So I've been doing that for a few weeks or so. And I guess she put together me and the two boys. And so she came up to me one day as I was leaving and she said, "Are you blank's mom?" I don't usually give my kids' names out. "So are you so-and-so's mom?" And I said, "Yes." And she was just like, "He is just such an amazing young man. Good job. Thank you for," and I was like, "What?" She's thanking me. I was like, okay, all glory to God right there, because I would not have seen that coming when he was 10, 11 years old, like the age of your son. I was like, oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. And at this point, like, we laid the foundation, but at this point he gets to decide how he's going to be, who he is going to act like, and what, how he's going to respond and what kind of young man he's going to be. And so I hope that story right there gives you some hope. It's not to pat myself in the back, but to tell you that you're in the trenches. There is a lot right now, and every day can feel exhausting, but stay in the trenches. Stay there. So let's go on to the next part of the question is, did I see that there's some shift? You know best. And look around in the area. Maybe there's a co-op that you can go to where, yes, you can shift some of those things onto somebody else teaching, and then see, does he respond well? Does he do the work well? Maybe it's a math class or a history class, an art class, or maybe it's music lessons, whatever it is, and say, okay, is he really being really respectful to them? And is this working well for you to kind of share the responsibility of his education? Then go ahead and do it. But just because he's strong-willed does not mean you put him into school. One last thing I want to mention about this. Around the age that your son is, a lot of the discipleship and discipline has to be handed over from mom to dad. It doesn't have to be one day that this happens, but more and more, it is dad who is going to raise him into a man. You don't know how to do it. You can do what you can do, but mom is always going to coddle and baby and to be like, oh, are you okay? Can you do that? And dad's going to say, he's fine. Let him do that. It's hard. It's going to be painful, maybe. Let him do that. We want to make everything good and safe. And so I would highly encourage the contention, the maybe arguments, the power struggles that dad steps in. Now, dad might not be available when this happens, but have that conversation with your husband, and maybe at the end of every day, he has a conversation with your son. So how did things go? Or, hey, mom told me about this. And then you can maybe say to your son, do you want to have a conversation with dad about this later? Like, let's, but dad needs to come alongside. And it's not just discipline. The discipleship also is like, hey, son, let's go fishing. Hey, I'm going to run some errands. You want to come with me? Hey, I'm going to work on this project. Come and do it with me. Let him do as much as possible with dad. And I think you will start to notice that things are going to be hopefully different. Hopefully you start to see that he rises to the occasion and starts to grow into a young man that is glorifying God and that is allowing God, the Holy Spirit, to shape his personality. There is so much goodness there in strong-willed children They are the ones that are going to be leaders. And so we get to, at this time in their life, get to direct them. So stay tuned for an episode coming up in March about that. But I hope that you have enjoyed these questions and the answers and a little bit of, probably a little more. I think I shared a little bit more here today in this episode than maybe I normally do about myself. But I hope that it in return has encouraged you. If you'd like to ask a question, check out the link in the show notes. And until then, don't forget, come back on Monday for that really exciting announcement that I have.